O dabar išpildom 3 karaliaus norus. Prenumeruojam, sekam ir spaudžiam patinka.
Moist Critical.
In the late 90s, a very popular Japanese game show tortured a man for a year and broadcast it every Sunday night. This isn't like reality TV where it's all fake and scripted, not to ruin Christmas for all the believers out there. This was legitimately torturing another human being for the sake of entertainment. And it was extremely popular, averaging 17 million viewers every Sunday night that they'd play the clips.
Wait a second.
That's absolutely massive, even by today's standards. It's more viewers than the last...
O tai pala, čia ne tas pats, ką dabar kiekvienas League of Legends streameris daro. Tik jie streamina, kaip patys save kankina. XD, blėt.
4 years of the NBA Finals and the World Series. And obviously, more than most television shows get. For reference, The Boys season premiere got around 8 million viewers, and according to YouTuber Atrocity Guide, who also covered this story, the most viewed episode of Game of Thrones got around 16 million viewers, so it even beats that. Just an absolutely massive success, but it doesn't stop there. The producers knew there was still a little milk left in those teats, and they wanted to suckle. So they actually turned it from just a weekly broadcast into a full-blown live stream where you could log on online and watch him suffer in real time. So whenever...
Aš negaliu, aišku, nepaguglinti iš karto. Nasubi, čia čiuvakas yra, ne? Was challenged to stay alone, unclothed in an apartment for nuo 98 iki 4 metus. A Japanese reality television show. After winning a lottery for a show business related job.
Whenever you were just feeling particularly quirky, you could hop in there and watch a man be miserably tortured
Iš tikrųjų niekad nepripratau žiūrėti 2x ar pagreitintais greičiais.
better part of a year. Doesn't that sound like fun? What a great way of starting the day. A nice bowl of cereal and milk for breakfast and watching a man's sanity slowly deteriorate as he dances around naked in absolute agony. Wonderful. This is the story of Nasubi. As I briefly mentioned, another YouTube channel named Atrocity Guide made a great video on this topic, but I wanted to go even deeper. So we, Caleb, Chelsea, and I, really did a fucking thorough deep dive, spreading the foul cheeks of this situation wide open, going through live streams, all of the broadcast clips, in order to really get a handle on just how vile this whole thing was. So let's begin. In 1998, a popular Japanese game show named Susanoo Dimpa Shonen held a raffle to find their next contestant for an upcoming show they were working on called A Life of Prizes. Nasubi ended up winning the lottery and was ecstatic. He believed this was going to be a big break for him since he was also an up-and-coming comedian, and he was escorted to a small apartment where he was then instructed to take off all of his clothes in order to participate in the game. The challenge was he would have to survive in this apartment on nothing but his winnings from sweepstakes. They only provided him with water, and he was told that he would not be allowed to leave or communicate with the outside world or have any access to anything that he didn't directly earn through magazine sweepstakes. He was told that he'd need to win 1 million yen, which at the time, 1998, was right around 8,000 US dollars, through only mail-in magazine sweepstakes in order to complete the challenge and be released from the room. And yes, this does include food. They didn't provide him with any food. The only food he has access to is the food that he earns through mail-in sweepstakes. It just feels like there were better odds of a bird carrying $10,000 in its mouth crashing through the apartment window than actually earning 10 grand through mail-in sweepstakes. This shit is like something you would actually hear of like fucked up Guantanamo Bay doing as like a joke or something. It's so cruel and brutally difficult. But Nasubi did actually pull it off. It took Nasubi 335 days total to finally make enough.
Pala, bet techniškai gaunas, kai savo norų ten pasiliko ir dalyvavo, kodėl jis viską tą pakluso? Pirma, kodėl jis ten nusirengė ir žaidė tą žaidimą, nes jeigu man tokias sąlygas pasakytų, ačiū ne, ir viskas. Bet, I guess, jis nebuvo kalinys, jis pats pasirinko dalyvauti tam game? I don't get it, wait, what? Pasakys gal apie tai.
Or at least, so you'd think. This is actually only the tip of the iceberg here, but I just want to give you the story in a nutshell. And I also want to explain the name Nasubi, because that's not actually the contestant's real name. His actual name is Tomoaki Hamatsu. The name Nasubi actually means eggplant, and he got this because the producers used an eggplant to censor his genitals for the broadcast, and they also said that his head resembled the shape of an eggplant. The whole point of the Susanoo Denpa Shonen broadcast here was to laugh at Nasubi, and people were. 17 million people having an old hoot and a holler, real side-splitting comedy, watching a man be legitimately tortured. Nasubi believed that he was being recorded and that the clips were going to be re-edited and broadcast for TV. So he would come in and like update people on what he's doing. Like, I just won this can of cat food. I just won this bicycle. And then he'd like dance around and try and make it entertaining. But he never knew that he was being live streamed the whole time. He was under the impression that it was just going to be moments from the challenge. Not that every excruciating second of this challenge was being broadcast to all of Japan. Extremely fucked situation, and this is just the bare outline of it. What I want to do for this video is actually go...
Gerai, jis paskui į teismą negalėjo jų paduoti? Aš nežinau kaip čia. Damn, čia tie klausimai, sakau, žiūrim tiesiog.
A lot of clips and moments from this live stream and the broadcast, as well as just everything surrounding it, because it is so baffling. It is bizarre that this actually happened. I remember...
Taigi ne savo norų, nu bet tai negali jo laikyti prieš jo valią, tai jau būtų tikrai nelegalu. Tai vis tiek jis turėjo rinktis, nes tipo, nu ateitų... Jo, ir jeigu sutartinė parašė, kad live streaminas, jisai galvojo, kad ten iškarpas, tai paskui gali gal į teismą paduoti. Jeigu sutartis buvo ir ten nebuvo parašyta, nebent buvo ten parašyta, bet jis nesuprato, I guess. Bet nežinau, bet jį laikyti uždarytą name negali, tipo čia, nu, tipo įkalinimas, nu, čia tikrai nelegalu, netgi tais metais, netgi Japonijoje. Kinijoje, Japonijoje, Japan. Tai man įdomu, jog dideliais prizais jis suviliojo, bet tada jis pats save jau kankino, I guess at that point. I don't know.
Vsauce did a video on what happens to the mind when you're cut off from stimulation in the outside world for an
Na, gerai, kad aš esu izoliuotas, bet bent jau mind stimuliuojamas yra. Jo, nes blet.
extended period of time. And unsurprisingly, it is so psychologically damaging to be completely alone and isolated like Nasubi was. And Vsauce only did like a few days. Nasubi did over a year, 15 months total.
なんと
脱いで書いていると
はい
誰かが来た、
はい
宅急便、
第1号
気分フードケミファさんのファイバーゼリー12個入りでございます。
いただきます。
This was Nasubi's first big win, a fat dubski. He was able to secure 12 pots of fiber jelly. I don't know what the fuck fiber jelly is. I've never heard of it in my life. That sounds like a made-up substance in the movie Snowpiercer, but it was huge for Nasubi because it's his first bit of food since this started, so he was extremely hungry and was able to get some nutrients. This wasn't the first thing he applied for, though. The first sweepstakes he was entering were for...
Le, kur klausiaus ir išgirdau Snowpiercer. Ir va mano mintis nuėjo, aš paskui negirdėjau nieko, ką jis pasakė. Snowpiercer. Ir ką aš galvojau, filmas, reikia pažiūrėti, nes ten girdėjau filmas toks... Idėja gera, executionas nelabai, ten apie post-apokaliptinį vos ne pasaulį, kur realiai turi judėtas traukinys, whatever. Tada galvoju, filmai, kaip tik dabar jau pradėjau planuoti movie nightus, kur namie darysiu, kai oras biškai atvės ir jau, į lauką nebėsim taip dažnai, nes jau noriu pažiūrėti pasikviesti žmonės pažiūrėti šitą Terminatorių noriu antrą pažiūrėti ir tada Lost in Translation parodyti porai draugų, kurios nematė. Ir praleidau viską, ką jis sakė po žodžio Snowpiercer. Visos vaka mano smegenys, padarė. I fucking hate it.
It's his first bit of food since the movie Snowpiercer,
Wow.
but it was huge for Nasubi because it's his first bit of food since this started, so he was extremely hungry and was able to get some nutrients. This wasn't the first thing he applied for, though. The first sweepstakes he was entering were for clothing items. He wanted to cover up, obviously, because being naked is going to be cold, uncomfortable, especially since it's being filmed. So he had applied for an apron first, but he didn't win.
やった、また何か当たったんだ。
はい。
お名前出してもらいたいと思いまして。
あ、はい、わかりました。はい。
当選か？
まずラーメン。全部で1700円になります。すいません、間違えました。
Obviously, since Nasubi was trapped in isolation, cut off from the rest of the world, he cherished every single knock at that door. It was the only bit of human interaction he gets. So he'd get excited, and of course he's expecting to win something, since why else would someone be knocking at the door? So he gets really hyped up, like, hey, finally something came that's gonna help me get closer to completing this challenge, or maybe it's food and I'm starving. But that wasn't always the case. Like in these two clips here, sometimes it was just fucking cruel, where a postman knocked on his door just to let him know that he needs to put his name on the mailbox or some shit, and then also someone put the wrong address for a ramen delivery, so he couldn't even have the ramen after smelling it. Like, it was just really sad to see.
米か？
でんでねー。
米だ。ナスビ、米。
お米5キロです。
Finally, it seems fortune's looking up for Nasubi here. He's able to secure 5 kilograms of rice. But then things get heartbreaking when he realizes he has no way of cooking the rice, because he'd need to win a pot from a sweepstakes in order to use it. So he just has 5 kilograms of rice that he can't cook. It's fucking terrible. So he gets desperate and he starts resorting to eating the rice raw.
卵をかじる。
お願いします。おかゆにでもちゃんと。
Čia man jau primena filmą Truman Show, by the way. At this point, tikrai pradeda priminti Truman Show.
となってください。申し訳ないですけどね。
あ、やば、turi
これは
vandens.
失敗じゃないですか？ちょっと待って。ちょっと待ってよ、これ。
実験成功。
見て。
Unable to continue eating the rice raw, Nasubi knew he needed to find some way to cook it, so he went full fucking Jimmy Neutron here. He hatched an idea to put the rice into one of the jelly fiber containers, and he put hot water in it, left it out overnight, hoping to make it somewhat cooked. As you can see in the clip, he said, even if it's gruel, just make it into something. It didn't work at all. So he came up with another plan to put it in the fiber jelly container, put it in the hot water, and set it next to the gas burner, so that way it would kind of cook it by proxy. And this worked. It was able to cook the rice, and now he had an efficient way of actually eating that rice that he won.
自転車に乗ってご飯が食える。やばせだな、僕は。ね。
Slowly but surely, Nasubi was chipping away at that million yen goal, winning more and more prizes, such as a bicycle, which on the surface seems pretty useless since he could.
Pala. Ar man vienam, ar čia Čarli tas panašus į tą, kaip ta Eurovizija buvo? Yeah. Jesus, ne, ta Conchita Wurst. Jo, ūsai barzda realiai labai panašus buvo ir čia dar plaukai netgi sušukuoti panašiai. Okay, my fucking brain, žiūrim toliau.
Didn't take it outside, but he turned it into a stationary bike, and I'm sure that was like a good way of stimulating him, because what the fuck else are you gonna do? So he'd eat his watery rice while pedaling on the bicycle, and he started gathering more and more winnings. It started to look like my fucking dorm room from college, just a bicycle and all kinds of miscellaneous shit all over the place.
来ましたね、見事に。いやいや、やってみるもんですね。ほら。
お米の炊き方98年3月版ニューバージョンです。
やっちゃってるよ、これ。もう。 トレビアン
He also upgraded his whole cooking operation by using a pin and a can of sake. He was able to create a pretty efficient cooking apparatus, so he was able to make rice more efficiently. He was even able to cook spaghetti now. So he was really like climbing up the tech tree here by just being an absolute fucking genius. And it's also worth noting some of the more useless things he won, like the bicycle, wasn't entirely worthless because that helped increase the value of his winnings, bringing him closer to that million yen mark. So even if he couldn't get a ton of usage out of it directly, just having it in the room was beneficial because it gets him closer to being done with the challenge.
瞬間が訪れようとしている。しかし、
あ、でもちょっと厳しいね。こんな
小さすぎた。
こんな感じになっちゃうね、ちょっとね。
Now, it's been about 2 months in this clip here, and according to Atrocity Guide, Nasubi submitted 5,748 sweepstakes entries in the first month. So you can imagine that he's right around that 11,000, 12,000 sweepstake entry ballpark, and he is just now winning his first article of clothing, which are used panties from someone named Hitomi-chan. I want to say I had no idea the used panty market spanned this far back in time. This is 1998.
Jis laimėjo 9 kelnaites iš laikraščio sweepstakes. Japan. Goddamn, Japan.
I thought soiled panties, used socks, and bath water
Wow.
were things women started selling within the last decade to take advantage of like internet sales. I had no idea that this was a popular market all the way back into the 90s. But anyway, Nasubi wins these panties. It's his only article of clothing he's won so far, but they don't fit, unfortunately.
名前つけてあげないとね、かわいそうだね。そうだ。ナスビのお友達でビーナス。ビーナス
ナスビ、ビーナス連れて初めてのお散歩。
I found this one to be extraordinarily sad, so still around 2 months now. He's had no contact with any human beings aside from the delivery guy just dropping off his winnings.
Gerai, just saying. Aš tikrai turėjau gyvenime etapų, kur porą mėnesių mano vienintelis žmogiškas kontaktas buvo, kai aš įdavau į parduotuvę maisto nusipirkti ir su pardavėja, I guess, pabendraudavau. I don't know, it's not, I don't care. Tipo, I don't care, bet, nu čia, tiesiog.
He wins a stuffed seal which he names Binasu and takes him for a walk. It's his only source of companionship. That shit just breaks my heart to see. I'm not gonna lie.
すげえ肉だ。5枚の肉。
貧乏芸人の日
Online irgi skaitos? Nežinau, ar skaitos. Nu, tipo, čia aš matau nikus spalvotus. Nematai žmogaus, tipo, veido ar kažką. Ir tas toks bendravimas. I guess, kažkiek, tipo. I don't know.
常生活においてステーキの4
Čia loterija tokia, tipo, kaip suprantu, ten tokia sweepstakes, tiesiog giveaway. Jo, giveaway turbūt, arčiausiai būtų giveaway. Visi submitina, kas nori laimėti, vienas laimi. Kaip čia, kad būtų visi parašo ten prizas ir ten paskui vieną išrenka laimėtoją. Tik čia turi laikraščiuose rasti jos, tipo, siunčia tau laišką ir kažkas laimi, tipo.
文字なんて想像だにしなかった。
肉をボールペンに刺して炙り始めた。5分後。
おいしそう。
ナスビにとって最高級の食べ物、ステーキを今まさに食べようとする瞬間。
This is his first time winning a direct source of protein. Up until this point, his diet was mainly just the rice and like spaghetti. So he'd be getting trace amounts of protein, but never something like steak. His macros had to be so fucked from this, but he finally gets steak, and he cooks it by using a ballpoint pin to cook it over the
Gerai,
direct
čia mėsą
flame,
iškep iš vis.
and he gets to eat it and is super happy about it. I'd also like to highlight something in that note he wrote. He said, in the life of a poor comedian, he's only used the word steak in his imagination. I think this is big because prior to this challenge, Nasubi wasn't a popular comedian in Japan. He wasn't well off or anything like that. This was his big break, which is why he was so excited to be part of this show.
Jautiena galima ir žalį,
And then
Jesus.
he gets tortured It's so fucking cruel. Like, you can't help but feel absolutely horrible for this guy.
当たった。
電車で電車で電車で電車でガッ
さらに
専用コントローラー好き
運転手はナスビ、車掌はビーナスってな風に。
かな
加熱しないで食べるつもりだ。
Kameros kokybė tai fantastiška.
全然いける美味しい美味しいすべてビーナス君のおかげだ
He wins a
Nežinau, Viki rašė, kad čia 4 metai buvo nuo 98 iki March 2002, bet per video sakė, kad 15 mėnesių. Not sure.
PlayStation
Žiūrim
game
toliau, I
as
guess.
well as a special controller for it, but he doesn't have a PlayStation or a TV to play it on. He then also wins raw pork and raw crab and eats it raw because he didn't really have an efficient way of cooking those. And you can see that he talks a lot to the stuffed seal. This is very much like a Castaway situation with Wilson. When you're deprived of human contact for as long as Nasubi has been, you start to try and find ways of being social. Humans are social creatures by nature, which is why it's so torturous to be deprived of that. It's fucking brutal.
Jo, tas teisybė, kultūra ten labai weird dalykų turi. Aš ten žiūrėjau ir kalbėjau net su Emilija, man atrodo, vienam iš podcasto, gal, nepamenu, man atrodo, kalbėjom apie tą, kaip tas fenomenas vadinas, Japan self-isolation, oi, čia bus, kaip ten vadinas, čia dabar apie COVID metą, Kikikomori, Kikikomori, apie tai žiūrėjom ir dokumentikas ir panašiai, kur ten žmonės patys save uždaro realiai ir atsitraukia nuo visuomenės, ten, kur žmonės gyvena, tai parašiau, kur žmonės gyvena, žiūrėjom 10 metų tiesiog izoliuoti nuo visuomenės, kur gyvena ten kompiuterinėse vos netokiuose, bet ten antiek, taip brangu gauti, išnuomos būstą, kad žmogus grinai metras ant 2 metrų gauna stačiakampį, ten kompas ir jis ten gyvena tiesiog. Žodžiu, žiūrėjau dokumentikų apie ten, jų entertainmentą visokį irgi, apie hostas barus, apie tai, kaip ten deitinimo scena visiškai fucked yra, kad ten žmonės geriau sumoka tiem hostas, su jais pabendrauja, pabūna, ir tai būna tas socialinis kontaktas ir viskas. Ten netgi kitokių dalykų, kur ten yra, kur kažkaip ten jos nueini į vietą, kur gali sumokėti panai, kad tau ausis išvalytų, kol tu jai galvą laikai ant jos kojų. Labai weird tokių dalykų mūsų kultūroje pasakai ir žiauriai weird, bet I guess tai yra skirtingos labai kultūros ir ten irgi kai kurie dalykai nėra visai priimtina, bet daug labiau priimtina ir tai labai keista yra teisti tokius dalykus, bet tas Hikikomori, tai jo, netgi ir ten yra toks labai weird dalykas, kaip suprantu. Jo, man atrodo, mes tuos video čia ir žiūrėjom.
The ability to order just
managed to come out. There is
after his death.
bear it.
Filmą aš nelabai žiūrėjau jų. Bet štai dėl žaidimų, jo, čia žaidimai kalti grinai, ne čia. Kur mano video? Ok, šitą žiūrim toliau. Bet jo, Japonija ir jos kultūra yra pretty fascinating in itself. Yeah.
Right around 3 months by this point, and he is not even halfway done.
Kiek?
Right around 3 months by this point, and he is not even halfway done to the 1,000,000 yen goal.
3ヶ月ぶりの掃除スタート。
まあ1は映んねえのかラップするよこれで
そのものとは
歯ブラシとア
Oh.
He's able to win a vacuum cleaner, which enables him to clean the room for the first time in 3 months, and then wins a TV, which would have been great because he'd finally have some source of entertainment, but unfortunately, since there was no antenna, it was useless because it would only play static, and he still didn't have a PlayStation that like played.
Čia toks iš tikro kaip survival RPG gėjimas, kur tu spamnini nuogas be nieko ir turi realiai viską per sweepstake'us laimėti. Bet čia tiesiog fascinating, Jesus. Stillnet Voice, anime filmas, žinau, tikrai geras, tik Stillnet Voice aš nesu net girdėjęs. Silent Voice. Nu, vis tiek nesu girdėjęs. Silent Voice, IMDb. Silent Voice damų 8,1. A young man is ostracized by his classmates after he bullies a deaf girl to the point where she moves away. Years later, he sets off on a new path for redemption. All right.
The PlayStation game that he won, so the TV was just a source of fucking white noise, I suppose. And then he finally gets something really, really useful, which is a toothbrush and toothpaste, which lets him brush his teeth for the first time in 3 months.
白衣を着た人現る。
健康チェックに来ただけです。
全く問題ありません。なすびさんは健康であると認めます。
This is one component that I always see left out for all of the publications or videos that talk about the horror of the Nasubi story. They actually had a doctor come in and check up on him. The staff wanted to make sure that he wasn't like on the brink of death or that he hadn't contracted any like serious disease or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a doctor come in, take his vitals, also did like a blood and urine test, or so they claim, and then gave him a clean bill of health. Now, assuming that that's all legitimate and not just, you know, theatrics for the television program, I would still say this doesn't take into account the actual torture this man is enduring.
Gerai, tais laikais, dar iki dabar, bet tais laikais mental health iš vis niekas net nežinojo apie tokį dalyką, tai ten tikrai netyrs mental health ir psichiatras neteis pačekinti ir panašiai, tačiau net nereikėjo tikėtis, bet tipo, I don't know, nu tipo, aš nemanau, kad tu per 3 mėnesius ten išprotėsi tiek, ypač kai, nu vis tiek, ir ateina ten, nu, pristato kažką ir tu tą kontentą, kurį techniškai te filmuoja, nėra, nu, visiška pasaulio pabaiga, bet čia tik 3 mėnesiai, jis ten daug ilgiau buvo. Tai tipo, bet 3 mėnesiai žmonės tengi daro tos eksperimentus ir panašiai, kur ten izoliuoja save, nu, ten tyrimams, bet ten, I guess, grupelėse labiau tą daro izoliacijų, bet tipo, jo. Tos, kur daro tyrimus, kaip ten Marse, pavyzdžiui, reiktų išgyventi, tipo, izoliuotėms ir panašiai. Bet, nu, čia, jo, it's gonna depend. Vienutėj, pavyzdžiui, kai uždaro kalėjime, ten kai kurie tikrai tragiškai išprotėja vos, ne, kai kurie ne, nu, bet tai nėra gal, kad paims ir tiesiog 3 mėnesius pabuvai ir you're just drop dead crazy. Tipo, taip irgi nėra, bet, jo, čia...
Like, even if his vitals are okay, he doesn't have a disease or any like big alarming health concerns. This is a man that has been deprived of sunlight, socialization, entertainment, and just basic human needs for 3 months by this point. So even if all of the blood work and all of that is within normal limits, this is a man who is still very much not okay. And to try and make it seem like, no, everything's great, Nasubi's happy, and this is a totally fine by the books thing, look, the doctor even says so, is even more scummy and shitty.
嫌なことに気づいてしまった。命の源お米が米袋の底に溜まってる程度になってしまってる。
ついに今日で最後か。これが最後のお米です。はい、ドッグフードです。
Oh no!
すると。
まずい。
Okay.
Somehow, the story keeps getting more tragic. The rice that he won on the 20th day was finally running out, and he was unable to win any more during this time. So he resorted to eating dog food, and dog food became the primary thing that he was eating. It was like his main diet. So he was surviving off dog food. And another thing that I've seen brought up a few times that I also question is the legitimacy of like what shows up, because it would have been very easy for producers to intercept things that Nasubi had won if they were too helpful. Like, I find it very odd that the only thing Nasubi won in terms of clothing throughout all 15 months was a pair of panties. That seems so unrealistic. I really think there may have been foul play, and this is just a conspiracy, where the producers intercepted clothes in order to keep him naked for the sake of the comedy of the show. And I think that there could have been a lot of cases like that. There's also nothing that would have stopped them from sending things he didn't win, like dog food. He may have never like entered a dog food sweepstakes, and they could have sent it to him in order to further humiliate and torture him for the audience.
There's
just so much shit in here that is beyond cruel and unusual. Like it blows my mind that this is something that actually happened to a real human being.
神よ、我に生きる力を与えきり、米です。ちゃんちゃちゃん。米はだって。
Luckily, he was able to win rice 3 months later. He won 10 kilograms of rice about 3-ish months after mainly surviving off dog food, as well as a couple of other foods that he'd win here and there. But dog food for a while was like his primary source of nutrition. And then he finally gets rice again. Now, it's been about 6 months-ish, and he is finally halfway to the goal. In 6 months, he reaches the halfway point. According to Atrocity Guide, he has submitted 38,000 entries by this point. 38,000 sweepstakes entries in 6 months, and he is only halfway to the goal.
Jos pagalbės neturi ir... Okay.
久しぶりだな。
この時ナスビは思った。
終わりですか。100万いったんですか。
言ってない。
意味がわからないんですけど、全然。うわー。車？やった。動いてる動いてる。これはまあ全部揃ってるというか、引っ越しっていうことなんですか？
Just when you thought it couldn't get more fucked up. So what happened here is this show was so popular, people eventually found out where Nasubi was being held. So there was paparazzi, reporters, and everything that all were crowding around the space, so the producers moved him to an identical space where no one would know where he was. It was super far away. It was like 5 hours away, I believe. And this whole time, Nasubi thought, oh, I must have won. But it turns out he didn't. They were just moving him to continue the game in a different location.
Wow,
it looks like actual kidnapping, and to a certain extent it is. The entire time, Nasubi is kind of delirious. He hasn't talked to people in a long time. He even says his mind is clouded with anxiety, and he's saying things that don't make any sense. He's unable to really talk to people or talk around people in general. He's like completely lost that ability due to right around 6 months in total isolation.
しかしこの企画が放送されていることを知らないナスビにプロデューサーは
なんか演技担ぎじゃあ私のためってことですねこれは
身に余る光栄です
The team told Nasubi that he was moved to a new location for renewed luck, so better fortune at a new spot, because they didn't want to tell him the real reason that they were relocating him. So they came up with that, and I'm pretty sure Nasubi doesn't believe them because he kind of laughs about it, saying, oh, so it's for my own benefit. I think he's very well aware now that this is a pretty fucking evil team of producers here.
I don't think
and
he was aware.
Whatever reason they had for moving him probably wasn't for his own benefit.
格屋がこれは椅子と机が当たったってことなのかなこれは社長気分っつうのかね
当選第1号国用のパーソナルデスク&チェア
操作しづらいんですよね爪が邪魔でね爪が
Jisai žirklių neturi, tiksliai Jesus fucking Christ.
こんなになっちゃってるからね
His first win in the new location actually is a fucking fat one. He gets a new desk, a new chair. They're both relatively expensive too, so it's a great victory for him. And he shows his nails. The nail growth is outrageous. He hasn't been able to trim them in about 6 months now. Like, he is genuinely a prisoner here, and it shows.
With this room switch, producers decided to offer a live web stream alternative, causing them to digitally follow Nasubi around with a joystick in order to censor his genitalia. As you can see, the quality of the live stream is primitive, but keep in mind this is in the late 90s.
I couldn't actually find a high-quality clip showing how they censored the live stream or did the live broadcast, so this comes from Atrocity Guide as well. What they did is the producers had a whole team that was dedicated to following Nasubi around with a joystick like they were playing a fucking arcade game with a sensor to keep his dick and balls off the screen. And they live streamed him. They wanted to offer a real-time alternative instead of just doing like the weekly Nasubi update with clips. They wanted 24/7 Nasubi coverage for anyone that wanted to go watch. So this was pretty innovative for its time. I think it's definitely one of the first like actual around-the-clock live streams that ever actually aired. It's pretty impressive.
ウィダーインゼリーが当たってかれこれ2週間当選がない。
ここまでね当たんないってもなかなか久しぶりの出来事でね。
車で移動。着いたところは。
ちょっといいよ。いいですか。
ナスビのあまりの運のなさに見かねたスタッフは当選運の上昇を願い2度
To
目の
increase his luck, didn't they?
So Nasubi initially had a good string of luck at the new location. I believe, according to Atrocity Guide, he had done 17,000 entries and won decent stuff, but then hit a really bad cold streak, even ran out of food at one point, so the producers did move him again to another location to help him out in winning more prizes, I suppose.
But how does that
it
help?
worked, because he did win more prizes.
ビデオデッキを頭にぶつけ当選の舞。
ほんと10ヶ月ぶりにね。
Wait a second.
トイレットペーパーに触ったよ本当に。
He finally wins food again and really celebrates getting some potato chips.
Oh no.
And he also gets a VHS player, which will be nice to go with the TV, assuming he ever wins a VHS tape to play it. But I think the most important thing he wins here is toilet paper. This is the first time he's had toilet paper in his entire stay. 10 months so far. And to celebrate, he tries to take a shit just out of frame, but was unable to. So an unsuccessful mission there, but at least he finally has toilet paper.
Bet žaidimų neturi,
そ
tai
れは8ヶ月前のこと。6ヶ月前。
おー来たよ。
Oh.
Now this is by far the meatiest win he's
Ok, tai jis actually 98 patapo Twitch streameriu. Pastreamino Naked. Tada streamina kaip PlayStation žaidžia. Amazing, ne?
gotten so far. A PlayStation.
Lievai maitinas, nesportuoja, nagų nesikerpa. Visiškai Twitch streameris, I don't know what to tell you guys.
That's pretty expensive, especially during this time period, and it also enables him to have real entertainment for the first time in 10 months. This is like a moment that's straight out of like Civilization, where you climb up the tech tree slowly but surely. 8 months prior to this, he won a PlayStation 1 game, Dinsha to Go.
Šis batonas. Jis viską atrado. Jis jau viską atrado. Ir va, Pegasas jį kopijavo savo 4 parom, ar kiek ten streamų čia čiuvakas, bet 4 metus matai, ir 20 metų anksčiau, Jesus. Čia jo, tas donation goal, žinai, 8 kas surinkti.
Which also had the special controller to go with it. Couldn't play it, obviously, at the time. 6 months ago, he won a TV. So he had a PlayStation game, a controller, a TV, but no console. He finally got that last missing piece of the puzzle, the console, and is able to play PlayStation games now. Well, the single PlayStation game he's won. And what's really interesting about this is his first piece of actual entertainment he's had since being fucking imprisoned here. But also, and this was pointed out by Caleb, This would make him the world's first video game live streamer.
Sakiau.
Because this is all being live streamed. All of this is a live broadcast. And he spent 4 straight days playing his PlayStation. So for 4 straight days, he was being streamed playing a game. This man was the patient zero of streaming. He walked so Twitch could run.
一心不乱で電車に GO に熱中するナスビ。電車で GO 3日目に突入。
Koks čia geimas?
電車で GO
Densha de Go. Densha de Go.
3日
The Densha de Go series has been around for a long time. Second nature to you. Now,
Aš kažkoks traukinio geimas.
by arriving at the next station on time. Now, overall, the game
Okay. Tai užbano, ne?
3日目に突入。
Neleisim žaisti.
He played so much Densha de Go that he had to ban himself from playing it further so he
Ai,
could
jis pats
focus on
užsibano.
entering into more sweepstakes and getting closer.
Jis literally būtų dar 15 metų pragyvenęs tą geimą žaidžiant, žinai, tai galvoja, gerai, man reikia sustoti ir reikia grįžti prie šito savo... Oh my god.
of freedom. So he stopped playing the game, went back to writing entries, and he was able to do it. He pulled off the last remaining prizes he needed to
Bet Truman Show, reikės kokią laisvesnę dieną, kai nestreaminsiu Trumano Show pažiūrėti vėl. Arba reiks movie night'ą padaryti ir parodyti dar ten draugiam, kurios nebus maršios, aišku, nes jos kaimietės nematė jokių fucking filmų. Bet kas nematė Truman Show filmas, tai ką būčiau geras contento kūrėjas padaryčiau, tai vat po šito streamo, sakyčiau, einam į Discord ir pažiūrėti tą movie night'ą, žinai, čia su Discordu, bet aš nedarau tokių šiaip. Yeah. Truman Show buvo amazing.
to reach that million.
Tai yra amazing.
一歩間違えてダイヤにしてくれてれば。
今回当たったタイヤが8万4000円。つまり現在の総額は96万9114円。
The tires put him extremely close to completing the challenge. He was right at the finish line here, so close he could throw the Densha de Go disc right over the finish line. Only a couple more wins would secure this, and he was able to pull it off. The final item he won that put him over the million yen threshold was a bag of rice. But Nasubi didn't know he won. It had been 335 straight days of constant, non-stop, relentless filling out of sweepstakes in order to win these prizes. 335 days of torture, and Nasubi had finally reached the finish line, but didn't know it.
ゴールを祝いクラッカーで祝福。
100万になったってことですか？
What the fuck is happening?
11ヶ月と1日前に抜かされた私の服ですね。
Per usual, the producers come in like a group of burglars.
Yo, what the
night
fuck,
and
Rimte?
start popping party poppers in his face, which scares the shit out of him and really confuses him. They eventually explain that he did win, he made 1 million yen, and they give him his clothes back. It's been 11 months and 1 day, and this is the first time Nasubi's putting clothes on in that entire time frame. So when he puts them on, he says that it's uncomfortable and itchy, but he's very, very, very happy to be done with the contest and glad that he's completed it. But that's not where this story ends.
食べる骨付きカルビにナスビ悶絶。
The producers took Nasubi to Korea, telling him it was a celebration for completing the game and for all of his hard work. So they went to an amusement park. He ate a lot of great food. He had a wonderful, incredible time. And then things got real fucked up.
そこは
脱いで。人は韓国の憲章だけで生きていけるか。
There's no fucking way.
ナスビ大ショック。
Nes parašyta, kad 4 metus tęsęs tas realybės show, I guess.
Nasubi was making them far too much money. The producers weren't done suckling from this cash cow's teat, So they trapped Nasubi in Korea. The goal this time wasn't 1,000,000 yen. This time he was going to have to enter sweepstakes in Korea, which he didn't speak Korean, so he had to use a Korean to Japanese dictionary to translate. His goal was to enter the sweepstakes, win prizes enough to afford a plane ticket from Korea to Japan. That was the objective. He was stripped naked yet again and forced to endure the same torture that he had already endured for 335 days prior. I would like to make a mention here. There is a moment where the producer says, if you don't want to do this, just say so. To which Nasubi responds, I'll do it. So I don't think they had ever forced him against his will to complete these challenges, but he was pretty much promised fame after doing these things. So in the pursuit of Nasubi's big dreams, he allowed himself to be tortured mercilessly for 15 months.
こんなにいっぱいということは商品総額が 47,800 円ということはゴール 46,900 円突破検証生活 in Korea.
This time around, however, Nasubi went fucking plus ultra, straight up turbo mode. He had become a master at this shit. So he was actually able to complete this challenge in just about 2 months, which made the producers very upset because he didn't suffer long enough. So they increased the challenge duration. They moved the goalpost. Instead of just getting a one-way ticket from Korea to Japan in economy class, they required him to get an additional 9,000 yen in prize winnings to upgrade that ticket to business class.
エコノミークラスという一番安い料金。こんなに頑張ったのにエコノミークラスとはあんまりだ。そこでビジネスクラスにランクアップ。ペンまであと 9,500 円。頑張れナスビ。
Yeah, more scummy, evil shit from the producers here. They never even told him he...
Tipo, bet gerai, kol produceriai, čia tikrai, what the fuck is the show, bet, nu, jis reiškia, su viskom sutiko ir desperacijoje tokioj gal buvo, norėjo šlovės, nes jau pagalvokim šitai, ką dėl šlovės Lietuvoje padaro žmonės? Visam pasauliu ką padaro? Turim čiuvakus, kurie streamina, kaip ten siurblis savo šikną kišas, kaip spardo kėdę, kaip uosto miltus, ten tas, plėt, kaip ten tas? Kur uosti actually miltus? Kaip tas čiuvakas, blėt? Užkrito, man tie autistai visi vienodi, blin. Kur Instagram ar kur laivus ten, man atrodo, darė, kur... Meibechas, taip. Meibechas, tai... Jo, nežinau kaip rašus irgi, bet jo, mes Lietuvoje ir visam pasaulyje, jeigu pažiūrėsim, kokių žmonių tik tai dėl šlovės, kokių dalykų nepadaro, tipo. Tai, nu jo, produceriai čia pasinaudojo progą, bet, nu, realiai sugalvojo outlandish idea, čiuvakas sutiko, nu, ir gyveno tragiškam, tipo, situacijai, bet jis bet kada galėjo, nu, tipo, jis nebuvo kalinys, jis pats tam sutiko. Ir visą tą norėjo padaryti dėl šlovės, ir visą tą praėjo dėl tipo šlovės. Nu, bent jau laikinos tos tokios. Ir prizo vis tiek kažkokio, I don't know. Taip, aš nežinau, čia fascinating istorija, bet tas toks pasakymas, kad čia produceriai yra evil žmonės. I don't know. Ar tikrai taip galima labai jau interpretuoti, tarkim. Jeigu jie kažką labai evil darė, nu, ten, vat, kaip naktį ateina, pažiūrėjau, čia atrodo, what the fuck, ką jūs čia darot, kodėl naktį būtent ten... kur pameluoja ar kažką, tas tikrai ten, nu, nežinau. I don't know. Nes jis galų galia sutiko viskam, netgi po tų 15 mėnesių jis sutiko dar kartą dalyvauti. Tai tipo, I don't even know. Turbūt čia reiktų, vat, dar klausimą, žinai, tas gyvenimas jo prieš tai, koks buvo, gal čia nebuvo tiek blogesnis gyvenimas, dabar bent jau tikslą turėjo, negu kad prieš tai, kai gyveno, žinai. Jeigu prieš tai irgi nieko neturėjo, ir kaip ten Japonijoje, blėt, savo izoliacijoje gyveno žmogus, ar taip, tai čia galbūt buvo vos ne tas pats, tik tai priedu jis dalyvauja šou, žinai. Nes, tipo, jo, aš nežinau, jeigu žmogus būtų turėjęs socialinį gyvenimą, kažkokį ar draugę, ar draugų, ar jis būtų taip sutikęs, arba jeigu jam tai rūpėtų iš vis, ar jis būtų sutikęs 15 mėnesių, tipo... užsidaręs save ir tada dar kartą sutikęs, aš nežinau, labai weird kažkaip atrodo, kad šis tikrai buvo savo norų, kad ir, nu, tipo, ir siekia šlovės. O sakau, ar mes čia prakeikiam visus, kurie siekia šlovės, nu, aš bendrai prakeikiu visus tos ir meibechus ir kunigus, kurie tas nesąmonės daro, tai ką žinau. Čia kaip su Stokholmo sindromu, po kažkurio laiko pajunti simpatiją savo krantui, gal ir tas kažkoks psichologinis turėjo įtakos. Nežinau, hard to say.
Initially completed the goal here, they just let him keep writing postcards until he'd gather another 9,000 yen. They didn't want him to win quickly. They didn't really want him to win it all because the longer he struggles and suffers, the more money they were making. So they let him just keep going and tried to spin it as a positive thing, like, look at how hard Nasubi's working. We're not going to let him fly in economy class. So the new goal is business class because it's what Nasubi would want. Just genuinely fucked shit.
頑張ったってこんなお茶2袋じゃよ。
4000円ということは商品総額は61,800円ということファーストクラスにランクアップということはゴールの金額もランクアップ
Nasubi easily gathered the remaining 9,500 yen after winning some expensive tea leaves, so he was absolutely slapping the producers' bottoms, like he was going hog wild right now. So again, they increased the goal without ever telling him. Now, business class wasn't good enough. Now it was going to have to be a first class ticket, which was an additional 20,000 yen, I believe, which again was pretty quick for Nasubi to gather. He won a live octopus, a big picture frame, and was able to gather enough money for prizes pretty quickly to get that final rank up to first class passenger. So then he finally gets the ticket from Korea to Japan in first class, and it's over.
そしてプロデューサーに連れられたナスビ登場もちろんアイマスクにヘッドホンナスビは驚くべき行動に出るなんと脱ぎ始めた
Okay, that's pretty funny. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Labas, treneri.
But the story wouldn't be complete without one more final act of cruelty towards Nasubi. They blindfold him, put noise-canceling headphones on him, disorient him, and drag him on stage into a mock room designed to look like the rooms that he'd been staying in for the last 15 months. So out of pure instinct, he gets completely nude again. It's the only life he knows, so without ever being told to take his clothes off, he does it anyway. And then the walls break away, revealing a live studio audience laughing at him and congratulating him for completing the show. Nasubi is understandably confused because for 15 months he has been psychologically and physically tortured. So he doesn't understand what's happening, he doesn't get it, and is shocked, scared, and all around bewildered. It's just one more sick fucking joke from the producers. Millions of people watching the finale, as well as thousands in person watching him, completely naked and completely having no idea what's going on or why. The life of prizes...
Gerai, I'm not sure about this part. Ten gan daug žmonių buvo. There is no chance, kad tu negirdi nieko. Ir daug labiau tikėtina, kai žinojo ir tiesiog, jis šaumenas vis tiek galų gale, kad jis tą reakciją ten taip ir panašiai suvaidino. Kažkaip nežinau, čia I'm a bit skeptical about that part. Bet kur, jeigu esate ant didelių scenų buvę, ar kur žmonių yra nors biškai, nėra tylos tipo. Ir tos popierinės sienos niekad nesulaikytų tylos. Ir tenais kameros visos, ta prasme, there's no fucking way, kai jis negirdėjo, ar tipo, tai aš nežinau, čia būtų biškai gal sketchy.
Was finally complete, and the entire show, Susunu Den Pashonen, was canceled pretty shortly after. It didn't have like a super long run after this. But the toll that this experience took on Nasubi's life obviously didn't stop with the finale. He reported being uncomfortable in clothes for about 6 months afterwards, and his social skills had obviously deteriorated. He said he was a lot more shy and not really able to be a comedian super well anymore because obviously he had been cut off for so long from people. He just kind of lost the ability to carry
Gyventų 2020 metais jog Twitch streamerių taptų.
conversations efficiently.
Nes realiai dabar toks būtų live streamas, niekas net turbūt dėmesio nekreiptų, nes šit. Kam žiūrėti jį, kai gali į tokias pačias nuogas panas pažiūrėti. Jis galvoju turėjo žinoti, nes vis tiek produceris nebūtų leidęs plikų penis stovėti prieš publiką. Visi užsidengia, bet jo, čia, sakau, tas momentas biškai sketchy. Ok, treneri, jo, žinoma, taip ir buvo. Dėkui, kad pasidalinai.
Just became a lot more reserved as a result of this. He did, however, sell his diary, the Nasubi Life of Prizes diary, like his journal, and that was a bestseller. That was a massive success. But he himself never achieved that level of fame that he was kind of promised with a show like this. He did have certain roles in other productions, and some of them pretty sizable roles in other productions, but never a massive success in Japan, even though this is like the most successful live stream in Japan's history. So just an overall extremely sad and cruel story. The main producer behind this show has gone on record and said he doesn't regret anything. He said his goal is to make miracles on film, and with Nasubi, he accomplished that goal. He did apologize to Nasubi, and Nasubi confirms that the producer did apologize to him, but the apology only does fuck all. Like, that doesn't make up for 15 months of lost human contact and health. You know, like, that's a nothing burger. But I guess at least he apologized, even though he made millions of dollars off the back of Nasubi's suffering. But anyway, I wanted to share this story because I find it to be one of the most interesting ones when it comes to like live broadcast television as well as live streaming. This is one of the first live streams, and it was fucking bizarre. Extremely fucked up story. And yeah, I just wanted to share that with all of you. Thank you to Caleb and Chelsea for...
Tipo, aš pritariu, kad čia yra fascinating istorija, tikrai, bet, nu, taip jau griežtai apibūdinti, kad čia produceriai buvo šetonai ir viskas, nu, tipo, nepamirškime ir tam tikrų dalykų, kai kuries buvo, kur skeptiškai žiūri, bet, nu, jisai sutiko tam, nepamirškim dar to dalyko, jis actually sutiko tam. Jisai Fukushimoje augęs, oh, Jesus, okay. Japanese reality show. Okay, after winning a lottery for a show business related job, he was challenged to enter a mail-in sweepstakes until he won about 10,000 total. He started with nothing, including no clothes, was cut off from outside communication, broadcasting. Nothing to keep him company except the magazines he combed through the sweepstakes entry forms. After spending 335 days to reach his target, he set the Guinness World Record for the longest time survived on competition winnings. Nu, turbūt nieks nemėgins net pamušti tokio rekordo, Jesus. Nasubi lived in front of a camera with only the possessions he won via the sweepstakes, save for basic utilities such as running water, heating, and electricity, and the stacks of postcards and magazines required for entering the sweepstakes. Due to his nudity, an eggplant cartoon graphic covered his genitals when Nasubi was standing in camera. Nasubi is a Japanese word for eggplant. The nickname was chosen due to his 30 centimeter long dick, face shaped like a Japanese eggplant. Nasubi believed that he was being recorded and the show would be rebroadcast later once the footage has been gathered. In reality, the experiment was being live streamed with the footage compiled and re-aired each week. Complete with sound effects present at frequent intervals, especially to highlight his sadness and frustration. At first, he received no food at all, drinking only water and losing weight. Eventually, he won some sugary drinks from his sweepstakes entries, then a bag of rice, and eventually survived for weeks on dog food he won. He carried on conversations with the stuffed animal he adopted as his sensei. He never won clothing he could wear, only ladies' underwear that was too small. Nor did he ever win anything to trim his growing facial hair. He also won other prizes he was unable to use, like movie tickets or a bicycle, both of which would have required him to exit the apartment to utilize. When he won a television set, it was initially useless as there was no cable or antenna hookup in the apartment, intentional by the producers. Out of fear he would discover he was already on TV, but it became useful when he later won a VCR for the 2 videotapes he won previously, and a Sony PlayStation for the games and controllers he had won previously. Upon reaching his goal, he was clothed and blindfolded and taken to a surprise location. Nasubi happily went along, believing he was going to get special prize for his year of hard work. After they removed the blind, he found himself in South Korea, where he was shown around the town and taken to another apartment. He was once again asked to take his clothes and complete challenge to enter sweepstakes, this time to win enough money to afford a flight with Japan Airlines to return home. When Nasubi quickly met his goal after several weeks of entering competitions, it was revised, this time to afford the ticket in first class, and the goal was set matter of weeks. When he won enough to return to Japan, he was blindfolded, clothed, and taken to another apartment in Japan. When the blindfold was removed, he looked around side and took all of his clothes off, at which point the walls of the apartment fell away to reveal that he was in a TV studio with a huge live audience. Nasubi was confused by this because he thought the show had not yet been broadcast. Unwrapping beje straipsnis Unwrapping the Truman Show Delusion. Actually, netgi tą filmą referencina. Aš sakau, čia žiauriai daug panašumų yra į Truman Show net. Kur baigiau? The entire ordeal lasted about 15 months, during which time his diaries on his experience of being locked away from outside world became the bestseller in Japan, and the TV show broke all records with 17 million viewers on each Sunday night. He reported being hot and sweaty wearing clothes after his ordeal, and for the first 6 months had difficulty carrying on conversations. In April 2020, Nasubi tried persuading people to cooperate with the self-disciplined stay-at-home order during the wake of the initial COVID outbreak by citing his own personal experience with the self-isolation. Other activities. After the rigors he went through in order to become a famous comedian, Nasubi was unable to succeed in the variety TV world. Instead, he became a local talent in his native Fukushima, as well as dramatic stage actor, founding the stage troupe Eggplant Way, performing across Japan. He has starred in Densho Talk, whatever, portrayed characters. Okay. In 2016, Nasubi successfully scaled Mount Everest after 2 aborted attempts in 2014 and 15. Nasubi reports that he is grateful for his experience and that the producer apologized to him. The producer, Toshio Tsuhiya, says he has no regrets and confirms that he did apologize and state that his goal is to produce miracles on film. Okay. Alright. Truman Show Wiki. Negavai kokio įkvėpimo? Ne. Ne. Permeti, kaip ar nemini. Ne. Jo, Trumano šou tikrai pažiūrėk, bet jo, nu, tipo gerai. Realiai, jeigu atvirai. Pretty weird. Japan weird. Ypač tuo laiku. Bet aš nematau kažko tragiško su šitą situaciją. Fascinating ir tikrai kai kuriuom vietom gal galėjo bent tualetinio popierio duoti ar kažką, I guess, iki tokio. Bet jis su viskuo sutiko. Produceris padarė show like no other. Gal galėjo biškėtiškiau tą padaryti. Tai yra tikrai galėjo biškėtiškiau tą padaryti. Bet vėlgi, žmogus sutiko su tuo. Tai aš negaliu čia sėdėti ir sakyti, kad čia produceriai buvo šetonas, nes žmogus galų galę sutiko su tuo. Ir, nu, blet, gal negalima tiesiog pateisinti visko, kad sutiko, reiškia tas, nu, aš neskau, kad čia yra gal gerai, bet techniškai Vis turėjo jo progų ir nutraukti, ir jis bet kada galėjo išeiti. Jis nebuvo kalinys, tipo, I don't know. Nu, mes aišku, nežinom kontraktų, ten nematėm, bet neturėtų galėti kontraktų, kur aš negalėsiu išeiti pasirašyti ar kažką. I don't know. Jo, labai fascinating istorija. Bet vėlgi, dabar atkreipiant dėmesį žmonės, ką tik dėl šlovės daro, tai jaiks tiesiog, sakyčiau, daug kartų blogiau net kai kurie daro. Čia eigės, nu jo. Kad buvo ten pusmetį, vat, negebėjimas susišnekėti gal su žmonėm, nu jo, obvious, efektą tai turi, bet, nu, jo, po pusmečio tada priprato ir toliau gyveno savo gyvenimą. Ir tiesiog istorijos dalim immortalizino save ir, kaip sako, jis pats net nesigaili. I guess čia galima iš karto argument, nu, kad čia psichologija jo pasąmonė užblokuoja tą, todėl nesigaili. Aš nemanau, kad taip yra. Nu, tipo, metai iš tavo gyvenimo patirtis. Ta prasme, look. Mes kartais, nu, tipo, gyvenam gyvenimą ir nugyvenam, kartais 10 metų žmonės nugyvena, arba kai kurie visą gyvenimą nugyvena ir niekad nieko realiai įspūdingo nepadaro. Ar ten ypatingo nepadaro. Ten aš nugyvenau, tarkim, porą metų buvo, tarkim, kur LOLą labai daug žaidžiau. Ypač buvo 6 mėnesiai, kur realiai po 12 plus valandų kasdieną, kiekvieną dieną be jokių pertraukų žaidžiau, kad realiai pakelt levelį ir patekau į LCS. Tipo. Ir kitas paskui ten gali žiūrėti, wow, jisai pusę metų tenais, draugų neturėjo, namie užsidaręs game. Okay, I wanted to do it. Ir aš gailiuosi, aišku, ne. Ir aš padariau kažką, ir aš galiu, tipo, aš nežinau, kaip, tipo, man sunku žiūrėti tą vat nutikimą jo gyvenime, jis gali apie tai kalbėti realiai, ir tai buvo, gyvenimo įvykis, ir jis pats nesigaili to, kaip pasakė, aš netikiu, kai jisai ten užslėpė kažką ir gailis iš tikrųjų. Tikrai nemanau taip. Jis tam ir sutiko ir padarė to, ko niekas kitas nepadarė, ir History televizijos tikrai padarė čia. I don't know. Damn. Tipo, ir tikrai ne kiekvienas tokį dalyką padarytų, ir jam dabar kiek jam 7 metai, ir kas iš mūsų gali papasakoti istoriją, kad įkopė į Mount Everestą, arba turėjo metus, kiek ten 15 mėnesių, live TV laidoje dalyvavo, kur išgyveno ant sweepstakes. Tipo, what the fuck? Ir, I don't know, gyvenimas yra weird, ir jis turėjo daug geresnį gyvenimą negu Ukrainos kariai, kurie dabar dėl Putino miršta tiesiog dėl... Tai tipo, nežinau, as far as human lives go, ir jo, ir jisai turėjo pasirinkimą. Kiek žmonių neturi pasirinkimo, net jokio, tipo, kaip gyventi ir ką daryti savo gyvenimu. Ir sakau, nugyveno gyvenimą, nieko niekad nepadarė. Aš nesijaučiu blogai už jį, tipo, kažkaip, nežinau. Vietom tikrai gal fucked up, ten, kai nagus pamatai ir suvokė, kai tualetinio popinio turėjo, čia tikrai fucked up situacija tokia, ir gal tikrai produceriai galėjo bent jau tokius nesestis parūpinti. Bet vėlgi, jisai sutiko. Ir tą dalyką galėjo, tipo, ir nebūtų net ten žiūrovai pykę ar kažką, kai tualetinio popierio turi, tipo, what the fuck. Bet, I guess, nežinau. Čarli, aišku, galvoja, kad čia yra blogiausias dalykas, koks yra atsitikęs, ir kad produceriai ten buvo tiesiog šetonas. Aš taip nemanau. Ir visų antra, dar čia yra visiškai kita kultūra, tai labai sunku būtų teisti tą. Bet jo, I don't know. Turbūt netokios reakcijos iš manęs norėjot, bet, mano, aš kitaip žiūriu gal į dalykus, I don't know. That's fascinating.